Well, one step closer to World War III. So many headlines today. We have the Daniel Penny verdict. We have the dude that shot the United Health CEO got caught at McDonald's in Pennsylvania. You couldn't at least gone to like an Arby's or something. But the next step in World War III just happened over the weekend too. In fact, I guess technically it happened yesterday in our time. Bashar al-Assad, the leader of Syria, has been run out of Damascus. And, this is probably the biggest story, historically speaking, that's going to be mentioned in the history books. So here to help us break it down, once again, we're becoming good friends with so much calamity these days. Dr. Jeff Brodeur, an internationally recognized expert in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear issues at Rigaku Analytical Devices. So my big question is, Dr. Jeff, if Assad's out, who actually took over?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good to be with you again. So that's a great question. It's ungoverned territory, as I would describe it right now. This gentleman was the younger of two brothers. He was never earmarked by his father to take over the country.
You're talking about Bashar?
Unprepared.
You're talking.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was woefully unprepared. He went to school, became a physician, ophthalmologist, I think. Then had to come back home quickly because his brother died in a car accident. His father died, and he took over in 2000. And he basically, it sounded like, based on what I've read, he tried to bring in some Western values into Syria, and things looked good until the Arab Spring hit, and about 2011, things went downhill from there. And he just couldn't hold out, even with Russian and Iranian support. So right now, as I look at the landscape, the players inside of Syria, which will dictate the future, is Turkey, Russia, Iran, the Kurds, a footprint of ISIL, which brings the United States in there to fight those terrorists, and then any number of mercenaries. And I think the blueprint for what this country is going to look like in 10 years is what we see in Libya, ungoverned territory, and you have tribal warlords that are going to claim geography.
So how does this affect us? I mean, I guess it could have reverberations throughout the oil markets, or does this hurt us with Israel or Iran? Like, what's the effect on Americans?
Well, I think for Americans, what we need to remember is it is now a black market for all weapons of war to go anywhere in the globe. So now your AK-47, your T-72 tank is going for like 25 cents on the dollar. And remember, they have a chemical weapons agent capacity.
So if you got sarin gas on your Christmas list.
That's right. And so that too is available there, and they have the facility and the scientists to produce more. And there's nobody that's in charge to tell them to stop or produce more. So that's what it looks like. And all of those can be spread throughout the world, on top of the fact that it is also ungoverned territory, so it's a safe haven for nefarious actors and groups.
So what does this mean for Israel? I saw they immediately stepped up and took the old Golan Heights back. Are they going to get to keep that? That's a very, very good question. I think Israel took advantage. Israel is partly to thank for this, because experts suggest that because they decimated Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hezbollah was the number one actor supporting Syria, that they were unable to do so. Russia is preoccupied with Ukraine right now. So basically, they were left unto their own government forces to defend their own country. And as I understand it, 14 years into this, they just laid down their weapons and went home and said, "You can have it." I can't blame them. That's Syria gets old after a while.
It does.
Yeah. So next question here for Lebanon. Lebanon's been tormented by Syria for decades. Does this mean they're finally going to be free of being bothered by their neighbor?
No, I think Lebanon's tie is Hezbollah, which goes to Iran. I think all roads lead back to Iran.
Really?
That Iran is the single problem. If Iran can be neutralized or influenced to play nice with everybody else in the sandbox, literally and figuratively, then I think we'll find peace and some resolution to this. But I think as they continue, and most importantly, they have the resources to export all of this violence out to their axis of resistance, then we're just going to see more of the same.
Well, the other side of the T chart here, because Assad's a complex guy, is out of all the people you see leading countries in the Middle East, this guy doesn't look like he's running around in his pajamas. He doesn't have a long beard. He doesn't have a big mustache. He doesn't wear like the blanket on his head. And I'm not saying this to be like dismissive or irreverent or reductive. I'm just saying, like, to the Western world, they dress different. He dressed Western. He's in a suit and tie. He doesn't have a beard. He has shortcut. He kind of looks like my old neighbor Freddie.
Well, sure. His graduate education, his medical school was in London. That's where he met his bride. And he tried to, in the early years of his leadership of the country, he tried to bring some of those Western values in. I mean, they almost had their version of the stock market stood up. And things were, I mean, there was a light at the end of the tunnel until the Arab Spring hit. The challenge that he had, I think, is that both he and his brother and his father were very proficient at crushing skulls. So whenever there was a resistance, they were very adept at going in and neutralizing whatever resistance so that it didn't gain steam. His mistake was he allowed resistance to not only fester during the Arab Spring, but to continue.
So he was too nice.
Yeah, in that part of the world, strength rules the day. Well, then he's too nice of a guy.
Dr. Jeff Brodeur, the guys that are taking over, they're not running around in suits and ties with a Western education. Is this going to be an improvement over Assad?
Well, I hope so, but I would tell you, I see nothing but chaos in the future. And that chaos is going to spill over. Again, nobody is going to accept a Syrian passport anymore, right?
I guess. Well, look, he seems to be like a pretty bad leader, but in that part of the world, it gets a lot worse than him.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes the best solution is the least worst solution.
All right, how do we find your work outside of WBAP?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, the only Dr. Jeff Brodeur. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Jeff Brodeur from Rigaku Analytical Devices. Yeah, so Syria falls. That's pretty big. And I always have like a extra interest in these places that are sort of biblical, because Saul was on the road to Damascus when he had a blinding light and became Paul and wrote half the New Testament. Damascus just fell. Same place. Wild stuff. Glad to keep track of it for you. If you have any comments on that, 800-288-9227. I imagine you'll want to talk about my next topic, though. There's a popular neo-Nazi account that used to be on Twitter. It was doxxed with help from the Texas Observer. Turns out it's a dude in Plano, and he just lost his job at the bank. Okay, if you hate someone so much over politics, you get them fired? Which one's the oppressor? Not only was he saying unsavory things about people in the normal Nazi fashion, some of them were actually threatening. And so that takes it a little too far. X is supposed to be a bastion of free speech, but this guy had his account suspended, and when someone asked Elon about it, well, I mean, it's not like they called him, but they added him about it. Elon actually replied, I believe it was to being asked about this guy's account. He said the guy made repeated threats, and that's not only frowned upon by X, it's illegal, as it should be. I mean, you can't run around making actionable threats against people. So some people, after they found out who he was, they found out where he worked, they made his boss aware of it, the people higher up at the bank where he works. I don't even want to say the name, but they got him fired. Okay, he's probably a terrible person, and I don't wish anything good happens to him. I hope he gets stuck in traffic. I hope he sharts. I hope his girlfriend breaks up with him. I hope his dog bites him. Got it. He's a terrible person. However, let's look at it from the other way. If I found out there was a Nazi working at the bank up the street, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't call his boss. I wouldn't try and get him fired. If I found out a black supremacist was working at the bank down the street, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't call his boss. I wouldn't try and get him fired. I don't care if you're Hindu. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're an atheist or Santeria. I don't care if you sacrifice goats in your backyard. I don't care if you even hate me as a person. If you're like, oh man, I hate straight white Christian males. Whoop-de-doo. Can you break 100? So I don't know. I don't have that gene. However, let's think about it like this. 800-288-9227. If you hate someone based on your politics and get them fired, aren't you the oppressor? Aren't you the one that's oppressing the other guy? Because this comes up on the show way too much. The definition of bigot, look, if right here, Merriam-Webster, American Heritage Dictionary. One who who's strongly partial to one's own group, race, religion, race, or politics, and is intolerant of those who differ. So which one's being a bigot here? He's not getting you fired. You may think he hates you. He may very well hate you, but he's not calling up the employers of all the minorities trying to get them fired. He's living his own life. Again, I don't like this guy. He's probably a terrible person, but the threat of neo-Nazis these days is pretty minimal. Yes, I know about the Allen shooting, and that's the only reason I don't say it's non-existent. But more people are killed by lightning than Nazis every year in America, even in the year including the Allen shooting. What was that, 2023? That was just last year. So on one hand, yes, this guy made mean posts on X, and you make threats on X, you should lose your account. You're a bad person, fine. I don't mind him losing an account. But all he's doing is following an ideology and a movement that oppressed and murdered millions of people based on their race. But on the other hand, you could say the same about the Democrat Party. Isn't that all in their past as well? I mean, who has a worse past, the Nazis or the Democrat Party? The party of slavery and Jim Crow and segregation? The party of the Trail of Tears? The party of internment camps during World War II? The party of the Ku Klux Klan? The party that was doing all the lynching? Neo-Nazis are bad, because they are the continuation of the party that brought you all that fascism, racial quotas, war, gun control, universal health care, public windmills. And if I must say, just a tad bit anti-Semitic. How is that different than the Democrat Party? Remember Hitler, the old art school dropout vegetarian? If they're so bad, why did the Democrats get a pass? And really, the question is, should neo-Nazis be identified and fired like this? Or should they only be fired if they make violent threats like this guy did? Overseas, we have what is probably going to be considered one of the biggest stories of the year, even though we had an election, even though we had a candidate get his ears shot off, even though we had the Hunter Biden pardon, even though we had a candidate drop out. This is something that is going to, or could be even bigger than it sounds right now. Syrian rebels yesterday morning stormed the capital of Syria, Damascus, and President Assad took off. He got on a jet. He went to Moscow, and he's like, forget it. It's over. Not worth it. Now, this guy has been in power for 24 years, but his dad was in power for like 35 years before that. So this is like a 70, 71 year, Assad dynasty. It was just a dad and his son. But while I agree that Assad probably not a good world leader, it definitely gets a lot worse than that. Assad was the guy that ISIS was trying to overthrow all those years ago in 2010 and 2011. Trump came in and wiped him out, but that's who they were fighting against. Now, Assad, definitely a friend of Russia, but this is a situation that I feel sort of parallels the Ukraine situation. Maybe both sides of this suck. Maybe both sides of them are terrible, and we don't need to get involved in it, because either way, we're going to be supporting a bad actor. But I try and be optimistic. But as far as Middle East dictators go, this is a guy who ran around in a suit and tie. This is a guy who has short hair. He doesn't wear cloth on his head. I'm sorry, I don't remember what that's called. I really am just a bumpkin. But he's a guy who was educated in the Western world. He's a guy that speaks English, some English. Have you seen him? He looks like your neighbor. He looks like he could be an American. Anyway, he's gone now. And even though right now it's not ISIS that has taken over, this could open the door for ISIS. And this could also open the door for Assad to go back and finish optometrist school. Strangely enough, it's a weird world we're living in. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk to a healthcare whistleblower, Dr. Brian Ardis, on the James Show, and get his take on the killing of the United Healthcare CEO and then the suspect that's now in custody. What does all this mean going forward? I'm James Parker. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. For many people, it's easily the most wonderful time of the year. For other people, it's the most stressful time of the year. Someone who can help you with that, Sonia Azad. So you were on WFAA before, but I think you're with Merit Media now, the Dr. Phil outfit. Is that right? Or did I just see you on there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm a little bit of everywhere. I'm like Santa Claus. No, I'm freelancing, but yes, I'm a contributor across the country these days. Yeah. How are you?
Well, look, I'm great. Welcome to the show, Sonia Azad. Now, I am a relaxed guy that doesn't have stress issues, but Miss Parker lives for stress. Hi, Miss Parker. And so just perusing your YouTube channel, I think she would get a lot of benefit because you talk about the stress triangle, and you just described my wife. So give that to people for the starter.
Well, the stress triangle is what I call the head, neck, and shoulders. And a lot of women, yes, we feel that because we tend to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. So what you're referring to is a video I have online that just teaches you how to stretch as you're breathing. So you're doing intentional breathing, focused stretching in that area. And I'm kind of being a little funny about the women versus men thing, but a lot of men also have TMJ. They clench their jaws. People who carry stress up into this part of the body, we see that they don't breathe fully. They don't breathe to their full lung capacity. And then that creates just a whole host of, I call it like a domino effect, right? Because if you're not breathing fully, then you've got parts of the body that should be moving that aren't, and then your organs aren't functioning properly. So we go on and on and on.
So I am hearing in this, Sonia, quite a bit of influence from the yoga world. Mm-hmm. So that's my jam, right? That's my background: yoga, meditation, breath work. But you could really call it anatomy and physiology or biology. So how important is exercise? Because I feel like that's an easy way that guys get a lot of stress out, is go lift some heavy weights. What about for the ladies?
Yeah, I mean, whether you're, and this all depends on, I deal with a lot of women who are in the perimenopause and menopausal stages of life. And so strength training is really important for women in their 40s and 50s. And
you did that, not me. I didn't hit that button.
Don't lie to her. But in addition to strength, mobility and flexibility is also going to be really important. And yes, exercise, whether you're walking or strength training, and whether it's the holidays or not the holidays, I'm always going to say is incredibly important. Move your body a little bit every single day.
What is myofascial release?
Myofascial release is, so you're exercising the connective tissues of the body. So you talked about guys going to the gym and you get out stressed by contracting the muscles, lifting a lot of heavy weights, right? But then you get these guys who are super tight and they're like, I can't reach back to the back seat of my car to grab, a bottle of water or whatever. I can't internally rotate my shoulder joint. And you hear of all these people who've got issues with rotator cuff muscles and stuff like that. It's because we're not moving the joints in their full ranges of motion. You get used to doing one motion and you keep doing it like that. And without exploring different ways that the body can move, it's kind of like if you don't use it, you lose it. So I go in and kind of help people to find these parts of the bodies that are kind of creaky, that haven't been moving in a long time. And we open up some space in the body. And that is a big time stress reliever too, because it relieves you of truly chronic pain, because what it turns into is stiffness in the body. And it's not pleasant, right?
No, definitely not. So what about my secret of the pros is alcohol. Not too much, but it's literally a relaxant. And if you're feeling stressed out, go have about 3 or 4 drinks and you won't be as stressed out anymore. Now, if you're an angry drunk, I would steer you away from that. But for normal people like myself, it works.
Oh my gosh. I'm only laughing because you said 3 or 4. If I had 3 or 4, it would be bad.
Well, you weigh 90 pounds.
So look, there's a difference between mindful and mindless. Like, have I had a glass of champagne in the last week? Yeah, absolutely. Because it is. It's fun. It's festive. You're with friends. You're having a good time. It's joyful. End of story. But alcohol will disrupt your sleep, especially if you have too much. It'll disrupt your digestive system. The reality is, and not to be like the Grinch here, but I know 4 people with active colon cancer right now, and doctors are attributing that. I've been covering this for more than a decade. Doctors are largely attributing that to lifestyle, which includes food, smoking, alcohol, on and on and on, sedentary lifestyle. So this is like worst case scenario, what we're talking about. But that's why lifestyle is not just seasonal. It's not like, okay, I've got to be really good right now and then I can do whatever I want later. You've got to be consistent, especially the older we get. We've got to be really mindful of, how does this food make me feel? Maybe I should just lay off on that, or this beverage, or just go down to 2 drinks instead of 4, or whatever it is. Because the truth is, we love to call ourselves like anti-aging, or all this, marketing around anti-aging, but none of us is anti-aging. We are all aging, and we've got to be mindful of how to do that, so we're supporting all systems of the body.
No, I like that part. I hate the people that deny, like, I'm not aging. No, we're all aging. It's okay. Your body's breaking down. You're fine. All right. Well, look, there's a lot of good stress tips in here. A lot of mindful wellness videos I was flipping through, getting ready for the show. I'm going to show some of these to the old wifey after the show, but how can the guy listen and find them?
I mean, everything's on the website, sonia-azad.com. You'll see the YouTube channel. You'll see online meditation and yoga classes. Tons of stuff in terms of like information on the blogs. But look, drink half your body weight in water, get proper amounts of sleep, and just be grateful. Every time you eat, every time you sit in your car, every time you put on your clothes or have clean drinking water, gratitude does wonders for the brain. And I think if we can learn to be more grateful for what we actually have, instead of feeling like a lack of abundance, then you're already shifting your brain into a state of pleasant, joyful, grateful being. So you're coming away from that stressful, holiday, miserable, kind of yucky stuff.
All right, Sonia Azad, thank you very much for being on the James Show. I appreciate your time.
Nice to talk to you.